I was divorced and single and miserable and overweight with a bad back. It's not possible to manage your mental health if you're not sleeping. I remember the first time I did a meditation, I literally lay on the bed. It was like, I'll do one for 10 minutes. And I fell asleep. It was like 7. I didn't wake up till 11 o'clock the next day.
What makes that a particular MSP attractive and another MSP less attractive?
I would say morals and ethics. I see AI as a pure human accelerator. Naturally, engineers are curious about AI. One person with AI genuinely can do the work of 10 people, but the curious MSPs are the ones that are going to win this, and the ones who are going to stick with the legacy and tie people into contracts are the ones that are going to lose.
Hello, we're here at Pax8 in Salt Lake City for our next episode. I am delighted to introduce our next speaker all the way from Ireland. But before I do that, I will ask, please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, give us a like. We're only going to be able to grow this community if you are part of it. So let's kick it off. We've got today Kevin O'Loughlin from Nostra from Ireland with us. Kevin, thank you for joining us. It's great to you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you come into this industry and where are you now?
Okay, well, go all the way back. So we're an Irish-based MSP. We started back in 2006, so we're 20 years this December. And I came into the industry because I saw the emergence of cloud. I worked as an IT engineer back in 98, became a service manager in 2020, sales manager in 02, and then I kind of continued in sales management until 06, and I left and set up Nostra. But I got into and started Nostra because I saw the opportunity that cloud was bringing, and it was very early, but Microsoft had announced a fabulously named product called HMC 4.5, which is now known as Office 365, and the concept was the MSP would buy it, build their own infrastructure and sell it out as individual licenses, and I just thought it was a no-brainer. Yeah. So that's where we came from.
Fantastic. And you're here, you've come to Beyond. So what do you hope to get out of coming to this conference today? Because it's a long way. We agreed, I think it's an 11-hour flight from Amsterdam by the time you return.
Yeah, no, it's a long way. Look, I think Pax8 are running an incredible show at Beyond, and Rob Ray, has been an industry veteran for 25 years, and I come over because I find it's probably one of the best thought leadership programs that exist. Why am I here? Because we're at a real pivotal point in the industry with AI, and everyone is looking for that silver bullet. What is the thing that's going to help us move the needle in our customers and take it from being cool to being practical and actually really make a difference? And I think some of the tech we've seen here this week is probably getting on that journey a little bit more than I've seen in the past. So I've come across to make sure that we, whenever we find the perfect solution for our clients, I think we're going to find it in the US. They're generally ahead of Europe with this technology, and AI is the buzzword that's here. So we want to learn it, find solutions, and go back home and deliver.
So take home some of the good stuff and the new and that. But a little bit more about Kevin O'Loughlin. I mean, you are. I've known Peter's spoken to me many times. And I remember one story which just resonated. In fact, I heard you telling this story at IT Nation when it was this year. In the fact that you have a driver. And the fact it was much more productive for you to have a driver than drive yourself.
Well, let's just go back a second, because there was a time, I think, when you were going to visit a client and you ran out of fuel on the way. Is that right?
That's true, yeah. I didn't have a driver then, though.
That's what I mean. I'm just going to go back a little bit. But did you ever imagine that Nostra would become one of the biggest MSPs in Ireland, nearly a household name? I certainly pass the Nostra vans quite regularly on my way to work.
Yeah, well, look, I suppose I'm going to give the egotistical answer. Yes, I did, right? And I actually never faltered in my belief, but it was we had a very tough first 10 years of business, and and we battled hard, and that did happen. I mean, it was about 2009, the height of the financial crisis. We had customers who couldn't afford to pay us money, couldn't pay us money that they owed us. We had customers going bust. We had people who had ordered things that had cancelled them because they knew they were in challenging times. And I was also at the time heavily involved in the property industry. I bought 5 or 6 rental properties, all rented to people who were building houses. None of them could pay rent. I was paying mortgages. The mortgages had gone up. I mean, I remember my own personal cash flow went from about 7 or 8 grand a month coming in to like minus 7 grand a month before I started the month, and it was just a really difficult time. But I remember I had in early '08 when times were still good, when the good times were good.
Just about.
Yeah, and as Tommy Tiernan once said, why didn't people prepare for the bad times and the good times? Well, that wouldn't have been the good times. That would have been preparing for the bad times. So I had bought myself a Porsche Jeep 4.5 litre V8 in March of '08, the last good month of my life. And then a year and a half later, I owed 50 grand on it. It was worth 10. I couldn't sell it. Couldn't afford to put petrol in it, and literally ran out of petrol underneath the bridge in City West on the way to a client meeting. And I knew I was close to them. I was only about a kilometre away. And I was like, I had no money to actually put petrol in it. So it wasn't that I just ran out. It was actually, I had no money to put petrol in it. My company account had no money. My personal account had no money. And I remember going through my gym bag and like finding €5 or €4. And I went in, walked to a petrol station, bought a large, like a 2 litre bottle of water, dumped the water, filled it with petrol because I couldn't afford to buy a petrol can as well, and brought it back. And then I remember it was parked up for like 4 days because I was waiting for somebody to pay me money. Like, it was incredibly tough, and I lived that for 4 or 5 years, and probably aged me. Incredibly stressful.
But that helps shape you and the business. Like, what do you remember from those days now that keep you going?
Well, I remember that no matter how bad things get, there's always a way through. I mean, I remember there was one week and I got like 9 solicitors' letters for, people that we owed money to as a business. It was a daily grind to survive, like really, really was. And like I couldn't sleep. I mean, the stress was so much I couldn't sleep. So I remember I was living in an apartment in Dublin, and I'd go to bed at night, wake up like an hour and a half later and no chance of sleeping. I'd lie on the couch with your eyes closed with Friends on in the background or Top Gear, just to have a background noise to drown things out. And then you're trying to get up in the morning, having not slept, and then do a full day's work and again get more hits. So really difficult. But then, at the end of '09, it kind of hit a pivotal point where it was so bad. I was like, something needs to change. And I kind of found, Tony Robbins and some of his learnings about, managing your mind. And I really got into that at that particular point. And that helped me. Well, firstly, meditation helped me sleep. So it was the first thing that I remember. The first time I did a meditation, it was the 1st of October '09. I was in a room in Spain with a friend of mine, Toddy. And we were going to go for a beer. And I was like, I'm going to try this meditation thing. So I literally lay on the bed. It was like, I'll do one for 10 minutes. And I fell asleep. It was like 7. I didn't wake up till 11 o'clock the next day. And it was my first time sleeping in probably 2 years. And then I woke up with this insanely quiet mind, which I hadn't had in a long time. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I've actually meditated every single day since then. And I think that's a critical piece in learning about yourself. But I was able to stand back then and go, well, what do I really want to achieve? And then what am I about as a person? And then I brought a lot more of me into the business at that point. And, it wasn't, I was like, I'm not somebody who wants to just make money. I actually want to do the right thing, make a difference, look after people, and that ethos flows through Nostra. One of the reasons Nostra's been successful is that we do the right thing, and we've loads of mantras in the business that we all live by. And they come from, my background.
Do you think that when in those early days when, the economy was dead, I remember I sold a 2-seater sports car to buy a van to start a company and suddenly crash. and it was a tough time. But I suppose two questions: if you could go back now and go talk to a young Kevin, lying on that couch, would you just what advice would you give him?
Okay, well, I actually meet lots of people who are in that position, and I do give them the same advice. So one is, I wasn't clear with what I was trying to achieve in life, right? So the most important thing is set your big long-term, and I mean long-term goals.
Your BHAG.
In your life, right?
Okay.
Not your company, but your own personal one in your life. So, and for me, when I pop my clogs or die or whatever we want to put it, I want to be able to say that I've made a difference in the world. And, the mantra with my kids, which is, we're going to change the world. And so, and for me, it's about how do you do that? Well, it's a bit like the butterfly effect, right? So you can, small impact can have a big impact. So I'm going, well, if I help 1 million people in my lifetime, fundamentally help them, and I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but let's say I have a couple hopefully done at this stage, then you'll have lived a fulfilling life. And so that's my BHAG. And then you kind of come back, so when you go, what are you trying to achieve? So then every decision our business makes, is it positively impacting the people, the companies, everyone involved has to have a benefit. The second piece then is around health and fitness, and making sure that you live a healthy lifestyle, you have good balance, you don't work every hour that comes. So I get home most evenings at 6 o'clock, and when I say most evenings, in an average week I'm home at 6 every day. And then I spend the evening, with the kids and with my wife. I don't bring my laptop into my house, don't ever work on weekends. But, from 6 in the morning till 6 p.m. I am working all the time. And then I'm looking at meditation, so, managing your mind. And the last piece of it then is the next step. So I never worry about where I want to get to in 5 years. I go, what is the most important thing I have to do today? And every day, what's the most important thing I have to do today? And then once you've that done, that's your next step and the next step and the next step, and they accumulate and they add up. So I would say to somebody who's in that position, stand back, decide, forget about where you are today. Because at that point I was minus 2 million personally, minus 1 million in the company. I had, Ulster Bank looking to repossess houses that I had. I was, living in my brother's spare room in his house. I had, life was incredibly difficult. And I had a company that was losing money on top of it all, right? And I had personal guarantees, which are going to make it worse if it went bust. And I was divorced and single and miserable and overweight with a bad back.
You're not painting a very good picture. This is not
to the average MSP owner, I think, at this stage, probably the conversations that I have.
But that was my perspective. I actually saw myself as an overweight, unhealthy, country fella trying to live in Dublin.
Your own external vision of yourself.
Yeah.
Reflective vision. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suffered massively with back pain, and it turned out the back pain was actually from stress, and it was your gut and your bowel wasn't functioning, and ultimately all the impact of that. And I had that for like 5 years, but I think if people stand back from any position that they're in and go, I want to do something in my life and actually make a difference, and then what are the steps I can make? And the first thing I would say is go talk to people, go and actually chat to people who've had tough times, and that'll give you strength and power to know that you can get through it. But one of the things, when you feel that there's nothing you can do, you tend to do nothing. Because you go, I know I'm going to achieve something in my life, right? I know Nostra's going to be a success. So therefore, I need to go into the office today and figure out what's broken and fix it. And in the first month after I made those decisions, we changed the business dramatically, right? We got rid of people who weren't on the bus. We cut people's salaries. We changed the entire operation and how we operated, and the business never looked back, because I set my long-term objective. I started meditating. I took the stress out. I started sleeping, and then you're able to see clearly. But what I would say is, people who don't sleep the first thing they have to fix is their sleep, because it's really hard. In fact, it's not possible to manage your mental health if you're not sleeping.
What is good? What does good sleep look like? You know, what are you saying? 8 hours a night? 6 hours? What are you speaking about?
It's different for every person, but I would certainly say, you should wake up feeling rested. If I take a baseline, wake up feeling rested. And like if I wake up and I wear a whoop, right, and I've been wearing a whoop since 2019, and if I wake up and I have a red recovery, so I haven't slept well, I will find time to take a nap. I'll see, can I cancel my first meeting? I'll take out my meditation. I'll go back asleep if I can. If I don't have a board meeting or something I have to be at, and I'm going to try and get it into the amber, so I'll have a better day. Because if I go in with a red recovery in a day, genuinely, you're more narky. You're reacting to things you shouldn't be reacting to. You're taking the worst case scenario. You see a phone call from a customer and you're going, damn, they're going to ring me with a cyber attack. And if you were waking up in a green recovery, you're ringing, Pat's ringing me. Hey Pat, how are you doing? So I think people often underestimate the impact of your mental health and your recovery on your business and on your day and on your team.
So from going from a business that was chaotic, losing money, to then fixing your own health, fixing your own persona of yourself, putting the right structures and the right habits in place, and then transforming the business quite quickly, actually, as you said, you've obviously stabilized the business, and you decided, let's go acquire some businesses. Like, that's a big leap to especially if you've never done it before. And that must have been really interesting. Because I know you've done quite a number, and you probably got more in the fire at the moment. But if we take you back to the first 1, 2, 3, 4 you might have done, what was that like? Because I'm sure there are listeners who are thinking about going on their journey of acquiring a business. And what did you learn from those early days?
Well, first of all, I think you have to look at an acquisition as in the MSP space, right? Adding new customers. Customers only give you an opportunity every 3 years, because most of them sign into 3-year contracts, right? So and most people stay with a business. So what is it, 85% average retention in the industry. So you have 15% of customers change providers every 3 years. So if you want to grow, that's a fairly limiting factor to do that, right? And our biggest way of winning new customers is cyber attacks. So a cyber attack happens, somebody falls out with their MSP, they come to us, we sort it out. So that's how it happens. But they're while they
somebody might get suspicious now, Kevin.
But it's a limited number. But so we realized we had to do something a bit different, and we had a company who, it's a funny story actually. A business in 2015 came to me and said, "Look, we're I got a call from the CEO, and he goes, Kevin, one of your sales guys is ringing all my customers and offering to give a cheaper contract than us. And he used to work for us and he has all the data, and that's a problem for me." And I said, look, and I go back to my help a million people, that would be totally against my own philosophy. So I said, okay, fine, let me deal with it. We only had 3 salespeople, so it wasn't hard to find them. Called them in and said, look, stop that. And I said, did anyone respond? He said, yeah, these 3. So I rang back the owner and I said, look, 3 people have said they'd like to meet us. Here's who they are, and here's the complaints that they gave. So you need to go and sort it. So he said, fine. So the next morning, he turns up at our office. And I'm going, oh shit, I'm in trouble now. And he comes in and up the stairs and he said, look, I hate this business. He said, I'm not from it. I bought it in 2008 or 2007. It was a company called Moresoft he had acquired. And their biggest customer was Foss, and Foss had gone belly up, and he had lost half his business overnight. And he was a cabling expert, and he is a true cabling genius, right? And has a super business today in cabling. And he said, look, I want to sell it. And I said, great, well, I've no money, so I can't help you. And he said, well, what if I was to fund it for you, right? So and we didn't know each other, and within a couple of weeks we had a deal done. And we took over on April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2016, I think. And an absolute phenomenal business. And one of our biggest customers today was doing a backup check. So to put it, this is a massive global organization, and the business used to go in every Friday and swap all the backup tapes. And about a week after we acquired it, we went in and met them and said, look, is there any chance for more business? And they were like, no, but what do you do? And we were telling them all the things we did. And then they rang a few days later and said, can you give us some engineers for the office? And I said, of course we can. So we ended up providing them with like 6 full-time people for a couple of years, and today they're still one of our biggest customers. And actually that business is bigger than the entire acquisition was at the time. So you get a bit of luck along the way. But then, in 2000, and we didn't do any then for a couple of years. And I didn't use any advisors for that. It was very simple, shake hand deal, with an email agreement between two businesses. They were doing about $1 million turnover. And that business today would be doing 3 or 4 million in our client base. But in 2018, then we kind of went out more strategically to start buying a business, and we went on a journey of trying to raise money for the first time, and that was a really interesting thing because they were looking at my personal bad credit from 5 years earlier. They're looking at the business. They're looking at our growth path, the acquisition we had done, and they just weren't interested in doing business with us because of the history that we had, and we ended up buying it out of cash, and that was our second deal, and then we kind of proved it, and then the bank all of a sudden were very interested in dealing with us, and what I would say is we learned lots in the journey, but one of the most important lessons I'd say is, if you want to know if the business is one that you should buy, go and have a pint with the owner. And if you want to have another pint with them, it's probably a business that are culturally aligned.
Use that in a recruitment process now. Yeah.
You do that in a recruitment. That's excellent.
Bringing two companies together, that's obviously a challenge. Like, how did you become? Like, how do you deal with that? Especially, small business owners, and they're selling into quite a big organization now. Certainly in 2026, you have 350 staff. I don't know how many customers. Revenue is probably over 50 million. So, and if you've got a business that's 4 or 5 million, 6 million, and they're selling into this, handing over something they've built from nothing.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that emotional path that person's been on?
Look, it depends on where the people are, right? So, we bought a number of businesses where the owner was just so worried about a cyber attack that they were just almost waiting to hand the keys over. So I find it actually, again, I would say the ones that worked. So we've done 11 deals. I'd say we've had one bad deal. We've had 2 deals that weren't brilliant, right? And the rest were superb. And again, if I go back, if I had done the pint test on them all, I would have said, okay, well, there's the 3 that we probably shouldn't do. Genuinely, that would stand up. And it's because if you're like if you and the owner get on well and you have a cultural alignment, then the 2 companies will actually have a cultural alignment.
Because they set the culture on both sides. They set the momentum for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's about for me then it's about understanding what you're buying. So somebody has built up a business and they could have somebody working for them for 15 years and they care about that person, and actually giving them the freedom to go, look, we're very honest now. If we feel that there's somebody in the business that we don't want to, that we wouldn't have a role for post transaction, we'll call that out early, probably even at day 1 meeting. And that gives them great confidence that we look after the team. We have a reputation of looking after the team, and that's important to us. But bringing a team in, what I would say is you can have a transformational acquisition where we're 50 million, we buy a business that's 40, 50, 60 million. That's transformation. That's a very different thing than buying a business at 50 million, buying something that's 5 million, because you're only bringing in something that's 10% of your organization. And it's got 10% of the team members, and they therefore will get absorbed into your culture, and it's much easier to adjust. And our philosophy is to buy lots of smaller MSPs and to bring them in, and they get a huge boost. Like people, like the team love an acquisition. Like it's a great excitement around it. This is something that's really cool. And sometimes, we buy a company that isn't even as big as our biggest customer. And, but it creates, you win a customer that's doing 2 million a year, it's exciting, you go for a pint and it's brilliant, right? But you buy a company that's doing $1.5 million a year and everyone's up high-fiving each other because it's the best thing ever. Like there's just a great synergy when two companies come together.
And do you think the MSP market is going to continue to consolidate over the next decade?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Yeah, I mean, look, we last year, if I take a simple example, last year we shot ourselves in the foot in lots of ways in how we made some organization changes to our business, and we reversed most of them in January this year and went back to the way we used to manage.
Great
customers.
learning point, I'm sure.
Great learning, yeah. Yeah, doesn't feel like it in
Didn't
the
feel
moment.
like it
though,
is
either.
right.
To the rest of the market.
Yeah. I always think of that scene in The Lion King, when he hits him with the stick, and first time you get hit, the second time you learn. But certainly from my perspective, we learned a lot last year. Let's call it that. I use your word. But we've gone back to the way we were, right? But we see some of the customers that left us last year have come back because, they moved from an organization that was delivering security, audio visual, phone system, internet connection, SIEM, SOC, all the managed services, print, right? And they moved to another MSP that said they were doing all that, but weren't. And they didn't have true 24/7. The phones weren't answered on a Saturday. Their security offering was much more basic, and they weren't getting the reporting. And and so what I would say is small MSPs, I think, won't exist because of the scale that you need to operate all the things that people need. I mean, security is an example. Like if somebody, if we just take the baseline of monitoring a network and keeping the proactive nature on it, the team and the skill set that's required to do that at the level it's needed and build compliance around it. Our team would be bigger than most MSPs just in that space. So to try and deliver that as a 10-person operation can be really, really difficult.
And what do you look for when you're going out to acquire a business? What makes that a particular MSP attractive and another MSP less attractive?
I would say morals and ethics. Like one of the things is really telling is pricing and how they price a service, right? So I always get very nervous when I see an overpriced service or a really high margin on something, because I'm going, somebody might have built a lot of trust and now they're using the trust to generate exceptional margins. Whereas, you buy the business, customer goes to market and realizes, hang on, I'm getting ripped off here and I want a big cut. So I would say how they treat their customer. So we have a rule: you can't sell something to a customer that you wouldn't sell to a family member, right? It's a simple rule, and it means that because sometimes people come into us and say, I want a UPS and I want a 10,000 VA UPS, and you're like, you don't even have an on-premise server, right? And they're like, well, I was talking to my brother and he was saying I should have this because he's in the tech world, and we could just go and supply it to them.
But that's not the right thing.
It's not the right thing.
It's back to your ethics and back to your morals and back to what you said, bringing yourself into this business. You've got mantras and things which are acceptable. It's interesting. It's a very in that part of that.
Yeah, and I could tie it all the way back to sleep as well. I mean, if I genuinely, if we did something that was truly wrong, I genuinely wouldn't be able to sleep. I just wouldn't. So that stuff would keep me from sleep. So I won't do anything that'll impact my sleep. But no, it is like and it comes from I came from a family in County Laois, and we grew up in a pub and a shop, and we had a farm, and we all worked. Everyone.
There's a farming theme going through this.
There is.
We've already had. You're the third farmer. I used to be a farmer.
I tell you,
until
a lot of people. I've never been called a farmer before. By the way, I grew up on
the
farm.
farming background.
Yeah, farming background.
A lot of conversations focus around AI and being a technology piece, but I think what do you view it as, a technology tool, or do you view it as a business transformational tool? Where do you think AI is going to fit into in our world?
I think AI is going to be an accelerator of people's ability to do work, is what I would say. And I think a company that has 350 people like our business today, my view is that we will be able to, in theory, multiply by 50% in the next couple of years without dramatically improving our headcount. And I think what I see, again, if I go back to how I think about it, right, helping 1 million people, not going to help anyone if I lay off 100 people because I get a whole lot of AI tools. So for what I'm looking at is going, well, can we give our team AI and then accelerate faster as a business and add more customers and gain huge efficiencies and allow people to, finish work at 5:30 and get home and actually have less stress in their day using AI as a tool to deliver that. And I think if companies looked at it going, if I give my people AI and gain the efficiency, and not that I'm going to change how I think, but actually can I get them then to do more customer servicing out of the back of it, and therefore I can grow without growing my headcount. So I'm not letting people go, and I think people who actually use it as the ability to cut staff cost is a missed opportunity, because one person with AI genuinely can do the work of 10 people, and if you can get and if you can have that spare resource in your business and you can afford to hold it, you can have massive acceleration by going to a new customer. Listen, I have somebody who can go into you tomorrow and we can transform, and then take those people and go, right, I've got 5 people freed up, you're going to the AI team, and now you're going to figure out how we can get AI delivered out to our customers. So again, if I go back to, I want to help 1 million people in my lifetime, and I can do that in my view by getting people to learn the skills, and I see AI as a pure human accelerator.
So what separates the MSPs, for those that scale and those that stall? Because I think that we're at a really interesting inflection point right now.
Okay, well, if I was to say the key challenge of most MSPs is the owner is the bottleneck. And the owner, most MSPs I buy will say, look, the biggest challenge you have is you can't get salespeople, and ultimately I have to do all the sales in the business because I'm the only one who's able to do it. And I think they have to step back from that. There's lots of people in their business who can do it. Like, there's sales and account management. And what MSPs do wrong is they hire salespeople and go, right, we're hiring you, you're starting today, I want you to win 500 grand of business by the end of 6 months, or you're going to be fired at your probation. And then they get fired at their probation. And it's like, no, that's the wrong approach, right?
How does AI change the economics of the MSP market at the moment, do you think?
So I think one of the future, so don't take it now, but one of the future things it's going to impact is that, most MSPs make the majority of their money out of monthly recurring revenue around support. And, at this moment in time, the MSPs are getting tools which are allowing them to make faster fixes on technology. But the reality is, the next iteration will be those tools available, ideally by the MSP, into the customer. So the customer will then be able to fix their own, the majority of their own issues as an end user. I think that's going to be a big shift. So I think MSPs have to just look at go, what is the historical value? And it's about being the trusted advisor, right? The MSPs are the companies that go in and help businesses to figure out whatever the current technology challenge is. And currently that's AI, right? And 10 years ago it was moving to the cloud, and 20 years ago it was doing virtualization, and 30 years ago it was getting connected to the internet, right? And at each of those iterations, the view was the MSP would disappear. But the reality is the MSP just becomes more important at every iteration. So for me, I think I don't have the answer as to what AI is going to look like in the MSP. But what I would say is we're definitely up for a significant disruption. But my view is that it will become clear as the next probably 12 months will give us all clarity as to what that's going to look like, what the business model is going to look like. And I think it is going to be around driving AI into those organizations to give them the ability to make their businesses more efficient. And again, at Pax8, they have this phrase this week on being client zero and making sure that you're delivering that efficiency to your own organization and then learning how to do it so you can actually deliver it to your customer. But I think we're in day one of a long journey in AI and what it's going to mean for us. But the curious MSPs are the ones that are going to win this, and the ones who are going to stick with the legacy and tie people into contracts are the ones that are going to lose.
And I think it just what's, because I'm going to bring it back to that, because everything you mentioned there, those transformational pieces, was around a technology base, a shift around technology. I would argue that we see AI as very much more of a business conversation. Yes, there's an absolute technical layer that's below it. However, that technical layer it will be managed by agentic AI. Essentially, you will set what you want, the perimeters of what you want, the outcomes that you want, and that'll be done. Yes, there's integrations and all the rest of it. So we heard this week an awful lot about mindset and getting the right mindset. And I felt a lot of that was driven towards, understanding your clients' businesses, getting involved, and you've mentioned this, but getting involved in clients' businesses.
And I think naturally engineers are curious about AI, and I think they're actually, our MSP engineers, I think as a natural, they're learning it probably faster than most other places. Obviously, software engineers are way ahead, but in terms of once our engineers truly understand it, I think they'll start really helping solve problems. And I think MSP, if you were to call it, take the tech out of it, because the tech is going to change every 5 or 10 years, right? 20 years ago, we were talking about moving from physical phones to voice over IP, and then moving into the cloud, and everyone was talking about their jobs gone in MSPs. Like, I think we can transition through absolutely anything as long as we go, what is our core role? And our core role is to find an organization that needs help deploying technology to make their business better and make them go faster. And anything that helps us do that is where we're brilliant. And I think MSPs might end up, looking at becoming almost brokers for software as opposed to actually software developers. And, will MSPs actually go, well, and some do CRM, but not too many of them. Some do ERP, but again, not too many of them. But I think en masse, everyone will affiliate with partners to do this work. And I think the MSP is going to be right at the center to help an organization and bring in every partner to deliver a finalized perfect solution.
Yeah, we heard that yesterday, the last mile. The MSP is the last mile. I think it was originally coined by Arnie Bellini, who founded ConnectWise. But what does a great MSP now look like in 4 or 5 years' time in 2030? What would a really good MSP look like in that time frame?
So I would say a good MSP at that point is still delivering all the tech to a company, right? And all the hardware, all the networking, all the security, all of that piece, but secured with AI. Let's take the first one. I think AI is going to totally transform security and how it works. I think it'll make, we're in a transition phase at the moment, but I think when that transition phase is over, it'll make networks so secure because it'll be able to
be adaptive,
it'll be looking at issues live and be able to fix them live, right? So I think we'll end up with more security that's probably less expensive than it is today, right? Controversial point, but I still think it is. And I think that's because there'll be so much competition in the space because the barrier of entry is going to drop, right? So that's point one. I think, and that's still going to be a huge business for MSPs. I think outside of that, they're going to sit in this layer where they're landing in beside the CEO, CFO of the organization, and they're helping them decide for every single tool across their business. And again, we're here at Pax8 Beyond. There's 3 Irish MSPs at this event. In a year's time, there will be other MSPs hearing about what we heard about this week. They're already a year behind. There are companies that need the technology that we're listening to today that don't even know this event exists, and in fact probably wouldn't even be able to come if it was an option for them. So it is our job to be at the forefront of new tech, to find out whatever's there and to bring it back. And I think it's the ones that are curious, and arguably the ones that are here at events like this are the ones that are going to find out whatever that 2030 organization is going to look like.
Kevin, thank you very much. I heard some fantastic content. And Peter's just, I think you two, we're going to have to repeat this because I think there's a lot more questions.
I have a lot more questions.
He's got a lot more questions. I know he has. He's thoroughly prepared for this. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us on today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I think we could take this conversation and expand it further. But I'm going to have to say we're going to have to bring it to a halt, because I know my storage in the camera is going to just about to run out in about 2 seconds. I think I'm on fumes at the present moment. Thank you for joining us today, and we wish you a safe journey back to Ireland. Thank you. That's us finished this episode. It's been a very interesting one, but technical issues, we'll resolve those as the day goes on. But Kevin, it's been absolute fantastic having you here with us. If you've liked this episode, please hit the subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. That's us here, finished in Pax8. with Kevin O'Loughlin from Nostra. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, sir.